Kai had always felt a special connection to the ocean, its endless blue depths calling to him like a secret waiting to be discovered. Growing up by the sea, he'd often dive beneath the surface, imagining what lay hidden in the vast underwater world. But when he stumbled upon an ancient map to a forgotten kingdom beneath the waves, Kai's curiosity turned into a quest. With the ocean's mysteries before him, he knew this adventure would change everything, teaching him lessons about courage, kindness, and teamwork he never expected. Part 1. The Call to the Deep. Kai stood at the edge of the dock, his fingers gripping the ancient map he had found tucked away in an old dusty book at the local library. His heart raced with excitement. The map was unlike any he had ever seen. Its edges were tattered, the ink faded but still legible, and its lines traced a path leading to a hidden underwater kingdom deep in the ocean. The thought of discovering something so mysterious, something that had been lost to time, filled him with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. It was a warm morning, the sun casting a golden glow over the tranquil waters of the bay. Kai had spent his entire life near the sea, but this was different. He wasn't just going to swim or dive for fun today. This was real. This was an adventure. As a child, Kai had always been fascinated by the ocean. He would often watch the waves crashing on the shore, imagining what lay beneath. His father, a fisherman, had told him stories of strange sea creatures, hidden caverns, and forgotten shipwrecks. Kai had heard these stories countless times, but it wasn't until now, at the age of 15, that he began to believe there might actually be something out there to discover. The map had appeared in the most unlikely of places. One day, as he was sorting through old books at the library, a loose page fell out from a thick leather-bound tome. It was the map, its edges curling with age. At first, Kai had thought it was a mere drawing, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was a real map, showing the way to a lost kingdom deep beneath the ocean. The coordinates on the map were marked with symbols he didn't recognize, but one thing was certain: it led somewhere no one had ever been before. His mind raced with possibilities. Could this kingdom be real? Could it hold treasures, secrets, or ancient knowledge? The more he thought about it, the more he felt an overwhelming urge to find out. Kai's best friend, Elena, was the only one who knew about the map. She had been with him during the entire discovery, but unlike him, Elena was more cautious. She had warned him about the dangers of diving too deep, about the unpredictable currents and the creatures that lurked in the shadows. But Kai was determined. He couldn't ignore the call of the deep blue. With his diving gear packed and the map secure in his backpack, Kai made his way down the familiar path leading to the pier. The salty breeze filled his lungs as he inhaled deeply, feeling the excitement swell within him. The boat, his father's old fishing vessel, was ready and waiting. Kai had learned how to operate the boat since he was a little boy, so navigating the waters wasn't a problem. But this trip was different. Today, he wasn't just going out for a casual sail. He was going to find something that had been hidden for centuries. As he boarded the boat, he checked his gear one last time. Mask, oxygen tank, wetsuit, and the map. Everything was in place. Kai started the engine, and the boat slowly moved away from the dock, heading toward the open sea. Elena stood at the edge of the dock, watching him leave. Her face was a mixture of concern and encouragement. "Don't do anything reckless, Kai," she called out, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. "I'll be fine," he shouted back, offering her a reassuring wave. He could see her shaking her head, but she knew he was beyond reasoning at this point. He had already made up his mind. The boat cruised steadily through the waves as the shoreline disappeared behind him. The further they traveled, the more the world seemed to shift. The sea grew darker, deeper, and the air thickened with salt. Kai's pulse quickened. According to the map, the hidden kingdom was located near a deep trench that few had dared to explore. The trench was surrounded by jagged rocks and powerful currents that made it nearly impossible to navigate. But Kai had a feeling that the challenge would be worth it. He navigated the boat carefully, staying within the lines on the map. As the hours passed, the sea grew calmer, and the sun began to dip lower on the horizon. The golden light faded, replaced by the soft pinks and purples of twilight. Kai knew it wouldn't be long before he reached the spot marked on the map. His heart raced with anticipation, his mind racing through the possibilities. What would he find? Would the kingdom still be there, waiting to be discovered? Finally, the boat slowed as Kai neared the designated location. The water around him was eerily still, almost as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. Kai peered over the side of the boat, scanning the water for any signs of the kingdom. There was nothing, just the deep, endless blue stretching out before him. He checked the map again, running his fingers over the faded ink. Coordinates were exact. This was the place. Kai reached down and pulled up a rope ladder that he would use to descend into the water. He could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on him, but he wasn't about to turn back now. He wasn't sure what awaited him beneath the surface, but he knew he couldn't let fear stop him. This was his chance to make history. With a deep breath, he donned his mask and oxygen tank, attaching the regulator to his mouth. His hands trembled slightly as he tied the rope ladder securely to the boat's railing. The water beneath him was dark, almost impenetrable, and the thought of diving into it sent a thrill through his veins. Kai swung over the side of the boat and began to descend into the ocean. The cool water enveloped him, and the sounds of the world above faded away. Beneath the surface, everything was still, as if the ocean itself had sealed off this part of the world from time. Kai's heart beat louder in his chest as he sank deeper. He swam along the path the map had indicated, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of the kingdom. But all he could see were vast stretches of empty water and rocky seafloors. As he swam further, something caught his eye. A flicker of movement in the distance. It was quick, like a shadow darting between the rocks. Kai's pulse quickened. Was it a fish? Or something more? He swam closer, careful not to disturb the creatures of the deep. As he drew near, he saw it. A group of vibrant, glowing jellyfish floating gracefully through the water. Their translucent bodies shimmered in the faint light, casting an ethereal glow that illuminated the dark ocean. Kai stopped for a moment, mesmerized by their beauty. He had seen jellyfish before, but never like this. These creatures were different, otherworldly. It was as if they were guiding him, leading him toward something important. Kai followed the jellyfish, who seemed to move with purpose, as if they knew exactly where they were going. His mind raced. Was this a sign? Was the kingdom nearby? He couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the verge of something incredible. As he swam deeper, the ocean seemed to change. The water grew colder, the pressure increasing with every meter. His breaths came faster, but he forced himself to stay calm. He checked his oxygen tank and found it to be only half full. He had to move quickly. The jellyfish were still ahead, their soft glow illuminating the path. And then, just as he thought he couldn't go any further, he saw it. A massive structure looming in the distance, partially obscured by rocks and coral. It was a city, or what was left of it. Ancient stone walls rose from the seafloor, covered in algae and barnacles. Statues of long-forgotten sea gods stood guard over the entrance, their features worn by time. It was a kingdom just like the map had promised. Kai's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The lost kingdom of the ocean. And he had found it. But there was something more. Something he hadn't expected. As he swam closer, the air seemed to shimmer with energy, and he could feel a strange pull within him. It wasn't just the discovery of a hidden city that stirred him. It was the sense that this place held secrets, powerful secrets that had been buried for centuries. The kingdom was waiting to reveal its mysteries. And Kai was the one chosen to uncover them. Part 2: The Hidden Kingdom. The entrance to the kingdom loomed before Kai, an ancient stone archway, half covered in coral and barnacles. As he swam closer, he could feel the water grow colder and denser, like a barrier that kept the kingdom hidden from the outside world. The faint light from the jellyfish flickered, casting eerie shadows against the walls of the stone structure. His heartbeat quickened, and a chill ran down his spine, though the cold water numbed his body. Kai reached the archway and hesitated. The water around him seemed to throb with a strange energy, as if the kingdom itself was alive, watching him. He took a deep breath through his regulator and swam forward, passing under the stone arch and into the darkness beyond. As he entered, the underwater world around him seemed to shift. The faint light from the jellyfish no longer reached this part of the kingdom, but Kai could still see through the eerie gloom. Massive stone columns stretched toward the surface, forming the remains of what had once been grand halls and temples. The sea had claimed the city long ago, but it was clear that the architecture had once been magnificent. Even after centuries of being submerged, the walls of the city still held an undeniable beauty, their carvings worn but still visible. He swam deeper into the kingdom, every stroke taking him further into the heart of this forgotten world. His mind raced. What had happened here? How had this kingdom fallen? And why was it hidden beneath the ocean, so far from the reach of the surface world? As he explored, Kai couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. The faintest sounds echoed in the water, whispers that seemed to come from the very walls. His eyes darted around, trying to see where the sounds were coming from, but the darkness was all-encompassing. The feeling that something was watching him grew stronger, and his pulse quickened. Despite the coldness of the water, sweat beaded on his forehead, and a tight knot of fear formed in his stomach. He swam down a narrow passage between the columns, his heart thudding louder with each movement. Suddenly, the water around him shimmered as if disturbed by an unseen force. A gentle current seemed to pull at his legs, guiding him deeper into the heart of the kingdom. He followed it, unable to resist the strange pull. As he swam through the darkened passage, the faint glow of the jellyfish behind him slowly faded, swallowed by the inky blackness of the underwater kingdom. At the end of the passage, he found a large open chamber. The ceiling arched high above him, and ancient murals covered the walls, depicting scenes of underwater life, glistening fish, majestic sea serpents, and powerful ocean gods. The murals seemed to tell a story, one of a flourishing kingdom, full of prosperity and peace. But as he swam closer, he noticed that the last mural was different. This final image showed a violent scene, ships crashing against the rocks, waves crashing over the kingdom, and figures fleeing from something terrible. The expression on their faces was one of terror, their eyes wide with fear. The water around the figures in the mural seemed to swirl as if alive, and Kai couldn't help but feel that the mural was warning him of something. Something dark that had caused the fall of this kingdom. Just then something caught his eye. A shadow flickered across the far wall of the chamber. He froze, instinctively holding his breath, and waited. The shadow moved again, this time more deliberately. It was large, and it was coming closer. Kai's heart raced, and his instincts screamed at him to swim away, but he couldn't move. Something about the presence of the shadow drew him in, and his curiosity overpowered his fear. The figure finally emerged from the darkness, and Kai's eyes widened in shock. It was a creature, but not one like anything he had ever seen before. It was a sea serpent, its long, sinuous body undulating gracefully through the water. Its scales shimmered in the dim light, glowing with an ethereal blue hue, and its eyes glowed a soft golden color. The creature's presence filled the chamber with a sense of ancient power, its movements slow but deliberate. Kai watched in awe as the serpent swam around him, its gaze fixed on him. It didn't seem hostile, but neither did it seem friendly. It was as if it was studying him, trying to understand his presence in this long-forgotten kingdom. Kai's breath caught in his throat as he realized that this was no ordinary creature. It was a guardian, an ancient protector of the kingdom. It had been waiting for someone to come, to discover the secrets of the lost city. For a moment, the two locked eyes, and Kai felt a strange connection, as if the serpent understood him, as if it knew his purpose. The guardian slowly circled around him, never breaking its gaze. Then, with a sudden fluid motion, the creature turned and swam toward an opening in the wall, beckoning Kai to follow. Without thinking, Kai followed. His curiosity had overtaken his fear, and he knew that this was the key to unlocking the mysteries of the kingdom. As he swam through the narrow passage the serpent had entered, the walls of the kingdom seemed to pulse with energy. The closer he got to the serpent, the more the water around him seemed to come alive, swirling and shifting with the energy of the ancient city. The passage opened into another grand chamber, but this one was different from the others. In the center of the room stood a large pedestal, atop which rested a glowing crystal. The crystal pulsed with a soft blue light, and its glow seemed to fill the entire room. Kai could feel its power, its energy, radiating out into the water. He swam closer, his eyes wide with wonder. The serpent, still swimming gracefully around him, hovered near the pedestal, watching Kai closely. It was clear that this was the heart of the kingdom, the source of its power. The crystal seemed to be the key to everything. But what was it? And why had it been hidden away for so long? Kai reached out, his fingers brushing against the cool surface of the crystal. As he made contact, a sudden surge of energy shot through him. His entire body tingled, and his mind was flooded with visions. The kingdom, once vibrant and alive, now lay in ruins. The sea gods had abandoned it, and the kingdom's downfall had been inevitable. But the crystal, this was the heart of the kingdom's power. It had been preserved for centuries, hidden beneath the ocean, waiting for someone worthy to find it. The serpent swam closer, its golden eyes locking onto Kai's. It was as if the creature was trying to tell him something, to show him the importance of this moment. And then, in a voice that seemed to echo in his mind, the serpent spoke. Only with the power of the crystal can the kingdom be restored. But the power comes at a cost. Are you ready to accept the responsibility of the deep? Kai didn't know what to say. The weight of the decision was overwhelming. What did the serpent mean? Could he really restore the kingdom? And if so, at what cost? But as he stood there, staring at the crystal, he realized something. The power of the kingdom, the secrets of the deep blue, weren't just for him to uncover. They were for all who would come after him. And if he was willing to accept the responsibility, he could help protect this ancient world, to ensure that its story lived on. With a deep breath, Kai made his decision. He reached out and grasped the crystal in his hands, knowing that his life, and the fate of the kingdom, was about to change forever. As the crystal pulsed with power, the water around him surged, and Kai felt a wave of energy course through him. The kingdom's secrets were now his to protect. The serpent, sensing his resolve, gave a slow, approving nod before disappearing into the depths. Kai was no longer just a diver. He was now the guardian of the deep blue kingdom, and the adventure was only just beginning. Part 3. The Awakening of the Kingdom. Kai held the glowing crystal in his hands, its light pulsing gently, as if alive. The water around him vibrated with the energy of the ancient artifact, sending waves of power rippling through his body. For a moment, he was weightless, as if the very ocean had surrendered its hold on him. The underwater kingdom, once lost to time, seemed to awaken around him. The walls of the chamber shimmered with a soft, ethereal glow, and the murals depicting the kingdom's history seemed to come to life, their colors deepening, the figures moving within the stone. But with the awakening came a sense of responsibility. Kai could feel it deep in his bones. The power he now held in his hands wasn't just a treasure. It was a key, one that could either restore the kingdom to its former glory or condemn it to remain in its eternal slumber beneath the waves. His fingers tightened around the crystal, and as he did, a sudden flash of memory surged through his mind. Visions of the kingdom's fall. He saw the people fleeing, the waves crashing over the city, and the angry sky above. It was clear that something had gone terribly wrong. But what? The serpent's words echoed in his mind. Are you ready to accept the responsibility of the deep? Kai didn't have all the answers, but he knew he couldn't back out now. He was here, the crystal was in his possession, and the fate of the kingdom rested on his shoulders. He looked around the chamber, the glow of the crystal illuminating the once grand hallways that now stood silent and forgotten. His heart pounded as he thought about what lay ahead. There was still so much to uncover, so many mysteries to solve. But first, he had to understand the full extent of his power and how he could use it to restore what had been lost. With the crystal in hand, he swam back through the passageways, following the serpent's lead. The creature had disappeared after he had accepted the responsibility, but Kai felt its presence, as if the guardian was watching him, guiding him from the shadows of the ancient kingdom. The walls around him seemed to pulse with life, and as he swam through them, he could hear a faint whisper, words that were not entirely his own. The crystal was communicating with him, transmitting its ancient knowledge into his mind. The deeper he ventured, the more he understood. The kingdom had once been a thriving civilization, a place of learning and prosperity, where creatures of the sea and land lived in harmony. The sea gods, revered and respected, had blessed the kingdom with bountiful resources and protection. But something had changed. The whispers from the crystal spoke of greed and betrayal. The rulers of the kingdom had sought to control the very forces of the ocean, to harness its power for their own selfish desires. They had ignored the warnings of the sea gods, believing themselves invincible, and in their hubris, they had unleashed a cataclysmic force. The waves that had destroyed the kingdom were no ordinary storm. They had been summoned by the very people who had once been its protectors. Kai felt a cold shiver run down his spine as the full weight of the kingdom's tragic fate settled upon him. It wasn't just the fall of a city. It was the result of arrogance and greed, a lesson that had cost lives and lost civilizations. And now he was here, holding the power that could either heal or destroy it forever. The crystal pulsed again, and Kai's thoughts shifted. He was not alone. There were others in the kingdom, ones who had once lived here, people, creatures, even spirits, who had been left behind. The kingdom's fall had trapped them, imprisoned them in the depths of the ocean. They had been waiting for someone to find the crystal, to awaken the power, and to bring balance back to their world. Kai swam through the ancient hallways, drawn to a large dome-shaped chamber at the center of the city. The crystal in his hand hummed with energy, guiding him toward it. As he entered the chamber, he was struck by the sight before him. The chamber was filled with enormous stone statues, each one depicting a figure of importance to the kingdom: kings, queens, generals, and sea gods. In the center of the room stood a massive, cracked altar, long since abandoned and buried beneath layers of coral and sand. But it was not the altar that captured his attention. It was the figures standing in front of it. There, frozen in the water, were the spirits of the kingdom. They stood like statues, their forms translucent and shimmering with an ethereal glow. They were the last remnants of the kingdom's people, trapped in time, their souls bound to the ruins of the city. Each spirit wore an expression of sorrow, their eyes hollow with regret. They were the victims of the kingdom's greed and the ones who had paid the ultimate price for it. Kai's heart clenched as he swam closer to the spirits. He could feel their presence, their longing to be freed. They were not malevolent, but rather lost, waiting for the chance to move on. The crystal in his hand pulsed again, and Kai felt a deep sense of connection with the spirits. They were not just souls, they were the heart of the kingdom. Their memories and their lives were intertwined with the city's very existence. And if he was to restore the kingdom, he would have to free them. But how? The crystal's light flickered as if responding to his thoughts, and Kai realized that he had to do more than just restore the kingdom's physical structures. He needed to heal the very soul of the kingdom, to bring peace to the spirits that lingered there. And in doing so, he would need the help of the very creatures of the ocean, the ones who had once lived in harmony with the kingdom and its rulers. He looked around, feeling a sudden connection to the creatures of the sea. The jellyfish that had guided him earlier, the guardian serpent that had watched over the kingdom for centuries. They were all part of this world, a world that had been torn apart by human ambition. And now he had the chance to fix it. The crystal in his hand pulsed once more, and Kai felt the power surge through him. The water around him began to shift and swirl, and he knew that the time had come. It was up to him to restore balance, to heal the kingdom and free the spirits trapped in its ruins. But as he stood there, his mind focused on the task ahead. A question lingered in his thoughts. What if the power of the crystal wasn't enough? What if the damage done to the kingdom was irreversible, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't bring it back? The weight of the decision pressed heavily on him, but Kai knew that he couldn't back down now. With the crystal in his hand, he made a vow. He would restore the kingdom. He would free the spirits. He would honor the fallen and heal the wounds that had been inflicted on this ancient world. And with the power of the deep blue at his fingertips, he would do whatever it took to fulfill the promise he had made to himself, and to the lost kingdom beneath the waves. Kai swam toward the altar, his heart steady, his resolve unwavering. The future of the kingdom was in his hands, and he would not let it slip away. He raised the crystal high, and as its light illuminated the darkened chamber, he whispered a promise. "I will restore you." And in that moment, the ocean around him seemed to respond, the kingdom's heartbeat echoing through the water as the power of the deep blue began to awaken once more. Part 4. The Restoration of the Kingdom. The crystal pulsed in Kai's hands, its light cutting through the darkness of the submerged kingdom. A faint hum echoed in the water, resonating from the heart of the ocean itself. Kai stood before the broken altar, the spirits of the kingdom surrounding him, their forms flickering and shifting in the currents. The weight of the task before him felt heavy, but deep down, he knew this was the moment when the future of the kingdom would be decided. He took a deep breath, adjusting the regulator of his diving mask, even though he knew the waters around him were not what made him nervous. His mind was filled with the lessons of the past, the downfall of the kingdom, the greed that had led to its destruction, and now the fragile chance to heal it. The spirits, trapped for centuries, had been waiting for someone to come. He had to be the one to fulfill their hopes. The crystal's glow intensified, casting long, eerie shadows on the stone statues of the old rulers and gods. It beckoned him forward, like an ancient force urging him to act. As his fingers tightened around its smooth surface, he could feel the raw energy pulsing through him, a connection to the heart of the ocean, to the very soul of the kingdom. It was as if the kingdom's essence was being transferred to him, a weighty responsibility that he could no longer deny. Kai swam forward, bringing the crystal closer to the altar. As he approached, the spirit's forms seemed to stir, their movements slow and deliberate, like an ancient ritual being rekindled. Their hollow eyes that had once been filled with joy, pride, and purpose, now stared at him with a mix of hope and sorrow. They were waiting for him to complete what they had started, to undo the wrongs of the past. A deep, rumbling sound echoed through the water, as if the ocean itself was preparing for something monumental. Kai didn't hesitate. Holding the crystal aloft, he placed it gently on the center of the altar, and in that instant everything changed. The water around him surged, and the walls of the ancient kingdom seemed to come alive, their once cracked stone glowing with an otherworldly light. The crystal's energy erupted into a brilliant flash, casting its blue radiance across the room, illuminating the statues of kings, queens, and sea gods. The entire chamber seemed to tremble. The spirits began to swirl around the altar, their forms coalescing into a vortex of light and shadow. Kai watched in awe, his heart pounding in his chest. The crystal, now embedded in the altar, pulsed with the strength of the ocean itself, its light growing stronger and brighter by the second. As the energy built, a series of ancient symbols, glowing faintly with gold and silver, appeared on the walls around him. The murals depicting the kingdom's rise and fall seemed to shift, as though the history of the place was being rewritten before his very eyes. Then, as quickly as it began, the energy settled. The chamber fell silent once more, the pulsing light from the crystal gradually fading, leaving behind only the faint glow of the spirit's forms. The water around Kai was still. The weight of what had just occurred hung in the air, and Kai could feel the change. Something deep within the kingdom had shifted. The air, or rather the water, felt lighter, freer, as though the very soul of the place had been unburdened. Slowly, the spirits began to dissipate, their forms becoming less distinct, fading into the ether. Kai felt a pang in his heart as they slowly vanished, their voices, once filled with sorrow, now filled with gratitude and peace. They had finally found rest. But then, a new feeling swept over him. The water, though calm, was now filled with a strange new presence. It wasn't the oppressive weight of the past, but a new energy, a new beginning. The kingdom, though still underwater, no longer felt abandoned or forgotten. It felt alive, as if it was finally breathing again after centuries of silence. Kai looked down at the altar, still glowing softly, the crystal at its center now faintly shimmering with an inner light. The light that had once been lost, now returned. He could hear the faintest whisper in the water, soft and almost imperceptible. The voice seemed to speak from the depths, from the very core of the ocean. It was a voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you," the voice whispered, and Kai felt a warmth that contrasted with the coldness of the ocean. He didn't know if the voice came from the spirits or from the ocean itself, but it didn't matter. He had done it. He had restored the kingdom. The remnants of the spirits were now gone, but their presence lingered in the water. The kingdom's once broken walls seemed more intact, the murals more vivid, and the statues, while still weathered by time, seemed less mournful. It was as if the ocean had forgiven the kingdom, as if it was ready to give the city a second chance. Kai looked around the chamber. The once dark walls now shimmered with the faintest glimmer of light, reflecting the crystal's glow. He swam toward the broken columns that lined the chamber, now less broken, their edges softening, the once ruined city slowly healing. The ocean, in all its vastness, was beginning to reclaim what was once lost, restoring the balance that had been disrupted for so long. And then, as if to prove that everything had changed, the serpent, the guardian of the kingdom, re-emerged from the shadows. Its eyes glowed with a warm, golden light, and it circled around Kai with a slow, deliberate grace. Its once aloof presence was now more connected, as if it had always known that this moment would come. "You have done it," the serpent said, its voice echoing in Kai's mind. "The kingdom is no longer lost. The balance has been restored." Kai nodded, feeling both humbled and overwhelmed by the serpent's words. He had done what seemed impossible, what no one else had been able to do for centuries. He had healed the kingdom, freed the spirits, and brought balance back to the ocean. "But there is still work to be done," the serpent continued, its golden eyes meeting Kai's. "The kingdom must be rebuilt, the lessons of the past must be learned. And you, young one, are the key to ensuring it remains whole." Kai took a deep breath, understanding the gravity of the serpent's words. He wasn't just the bearer of the crystal. He was the guardian of this new beginning. He had to ensure that the kingdom never fell into the same trap of greed and destruction again. This was a new era for the kingdom, and for the ocean itself. "I will," Kai promised, his voice steady and resolute. "I will protect it. I'll make sure the lessons of the past are never forgotten." The serpent swam around him in a slow, graceful arc, its movements almost ceremonial. It was clear that Kai had earned its trust. The ancient creature, the guardian of the kingdom, had chosen him not just as a finder of lost things, but as a protector, a steward of the kingdom's future. With the serpent's approval, Kai began to swim back toward the city's entrance, the weight of his newfound responsibility resting on his shoulders. The journey ahead would not be easy. There were still many parts of the kingdom that needed restoration, many lessons that needed to be learned. But he knew one thing for certain: the ocean had given him a purpose. It had entrusted him with the restoration of a lost world. And as Kai swam back toward the surface, he knew that his adventure was only just beginning. The deep blue kingdom had been reborn, and now it was up to him to protect it. Part 5. The Guardian of the Deep. Kai swam upward, leaving the heart of the submerged kingdom behind him. The weight of the crystal pulsed gently in his hands, as though alive, reminding him of the ancient power he now carried. He could feel the vibrations of the kingdom, a hum deep within his chest, as though the city itself was aware of his every movement. The kingdom was no longer lost to the depths of the ocean. It had been restored, reborn through his efforts. But the work was far from finished. As the surface of the ocean neared, the familiar salty scent of the air greeted him, and the warm rays of the sun began to filter through the water. He broke the surface, gasping for air, and hauled himself onto the boat. His heart pounded, but it wasn't just from the exertion. It was from the immense responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. He had restored the kingdom, yes, but what would come next? The kingdom, once lost to time, was now alive again, and with its resurrection came the need to protect it, to ensure its future, its survival. The boat gently rocked in the calm waters as Kai sat, staring out at the endless ocean. His mind raced with the magnitude of what had just transpired. The kingdom, though restored, was still fragile. It was not enough to simply heal the physical ruins. It needed to be safeguarded, its lessons preserved for future generations. There were forces beyond the ocean that had once destroyed it, and Kai knew that the world above would not simply let such a discovery go unnoticed. He looked down at the crystal in his hands, now a source of both immense power and heavy responsibility. It had chosen him, and through him, the kingdom had found its redemption. But what would the world think? The knowledge of the lost kingdom, its treasures, its history, would be coveted by many, and some, like those who had once brought the kingdom to its fall, would seek to use its power for selfish gain. With a sigh, Kai placed the crystal carefully back into his bag and started the engine of the boat. He needed to return to the surface, to the world he knew. There was much to prepare. He couldn't do it alone. He needed to seek help. Elena, his best friend, would understand. She had always been by his side, and now, more than ever, he needed her wisdom and courage. As the boat cut through the waves, Kai's thoughts turned to the guardian serpent. He had sensed its presence in the depths, watching over him, guiding him. It had chosen him as the protector of the kingdom, but it had also made it clear that the ocean itself played a vital role in this restoration. The sea gods, long abandoned, had seen fit to trust him with their power. The serpent's words echoed in his mind. The kingdom must be rebuilt, the lessons of the past must be learned. And you, young one, are the key to ensuring it remains whole. The weight of this responsibility felt both daunting and inspiring. Kai wasn't just the one who had unlocked the kingdom's secrets. He was now its guardian, its steward. The kingdom, like the ocean, was vast, ancient, and full of mysteries. And those mysteries needed to be protected. Protected from those who would exploit them, and from the forces that had once led to its downfall. The horizon was before him, and in the distance, the outline of the shore appeared. Kai squinted, focusing on the land that marked the boundary between the ocean and the world he knew. It was a world that had no idea what lay beneath the surface. It was a world that would soon be confronted with the knowledge of the kingdom's resurrection. And Kai knew that once he revealed the truth, everything would change. The journey back to the shore seemed longer than it should have been. With each passing minute, the weight of his decision grew heavier. He had a duty now, not just to the kingdom but to the people who had once inhabited it. He had to protect their memory, to ensure that their fall did not repeat itself. And, perhaps most importantly, he needed to find a way to safeguard the crystal, the key to the kingdom's power. The boat crested the waves, and soon the familiar sight of the dock came into view. As he slowed the boat and guided it toward the shore, Kai felt a mixture of relief and dread. He had completed the first step in a long journey. The kingdom had been restored, the spirits freed, and the ancient lessons remembered. But the road ahead was uncertain. What would the world think when they learned of the lost kingdom beneath the waves? What would they do with the power that the crystal represented? As he docked the boat, Kai stepped onto the solid ground of the pier, feeling the weight of the ocean leave him, though he knew it would always be a part of him. Elena was waiting for him on the dock, her face a mixture of concern and curiosity. When she saw the look in his eyes, she didn't ask questions right away. She knew him too well. "What happened?" she asked quietly, her voice filled with both worry and understanding. Kai took a deep breath, looking out at the sea that stretched endlessly before him. He could feel the presence of the kingdom below, pulsing with life and power. The ocean seemed to whisper in his ear, as though urging him to continue the journey he had started. "It's done," Kai said softly. "The kingdom is restored. The spirits are free. But it's not over yet. The kingdom needs protection. And I need your help." Elena nodded, her eyes filled with the same resolve that had always defined her. She was the steady hand to his impulsive spirit, the voice of reason in his more reckless moments. And right now he needed her more than ever. "We'll figure it out," she said. "We'll protect it. But we need a plan. We can't just keep it a secret." Kai glanced down at the bag slung over his shoulder. The crystal's weight was still a reminder of the burden he carried. The world above would soon know of the kingdom's existence, but what would they do with that knowledge? The ocean was vast, but the world was full of those who would seek to exploit it. "I know," Kai said, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "But I don't know how to keep it safe. The crystal. It's more powerful than I ever imagined, and there are forces that will come after it. We need to be prepared." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder, offering him a reassuring smile. "We'll make sure it's protected. Together. You don't have to carry this alone." Kai nodded, grateful for her support. As they stood there, facing the sea and the unknown future, he realized that he wasn't alone in this. The restoration of the kingdom was just the beginning. There was a new mission now, one that involved protecting the kingdom from those who would exploit its power and ensuring that the lessons of the past would never be forgotten. The ocean had given Kai a purpose, a duty, and a responsibility that could never be undone. The kingdom, now awakened, would remain hidden beneath the waves, but the world above would know of its existence. And Kai, as its guardian, would protect it at all costs. With Elena by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would ensure that the kingdom remained safe, and that the power of the deep blue ocean would never again be misused. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, Kai knew one thing for certain. The ocean's secrets were no longer hidden. They had been revealed, and now it was up to him to ensure they were protected for generations to come. The deep blue kingdom was alive, and it was his to guard. And with Elena's unwavering support, Kai was ready to face whatever challenges awaited him, as the guardian of the deep.